I've been following the stats in Canada. I guess I don't know if some of you know I'm Canadian actually. It doesn't sound that way, but born and raised in Creemore, and went to U of T, moved to the UK in 1989, and picked up my MW in 1995, and been specializing in Italian wines ever since, and started working with Opimian 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember now, but I've had a great time with Opimian. And 2 years ago, traveled all over Eastern Canada, met loads of you, and had a great time and drank too much. So all good. Um, Hi, Joy. Oh, you have a glass of Zuccheto. I guess that was from last year, right? Must be. Gabrielle asks, "Can we be heard?" I can't hear any of you. I don't know if I should do. I've got my volume on. I'm not kind of like the most techie guy here. So if you have any suggestions as to what I should do, tell me. Creemore beer. Yeah, I know. I tell you what, when I was growing up, where Creemore Springs is now, that was a hardware store, and then they tore that down and built a brewery, and they probably sold out to Molson or somebody in the meantime. Hey Kim, nice to see you. Sorry, that's all right that you're late. I was just a bit worried on the tech side of it because I'm not really very good at that. But I think I found my way in one way or another just by pushing a bunch of buttons. So look, it's 7 minutes past five. Should we get going on the tasting, or do you want me to wait till a few more people join? Kim, I'll wait for a guide from you. Should we crack on, or do you want to wait a bit longer? Okay, well, I've waited long enough, so glass of prosecco it is. So just before we start, if you have some prosecco, then well done you. And if you don't, sucks to be you. Um, so prosecco, I guess the first thing to say is the phenomenon which it is in the UK. So over here last year we sold 215 million bottles of prosecco just in the UK. So this is insane, and it's been on the rise dramatically for the last 10 years. And the interesting thing is, about, I don't know, it must be 15 years ago now, maybe more, I was invited by the consortium Prosecco to go and speak to them about what they needed to do to develop the international markets. And of course, it's always hard, when you're speaking to a bunch of people. You don't want to say to them, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." It's easy, isn't it, to come up with suggestions? But what I said to them was they needed to invest in some marketing to tell people about prosecco and to explain to people why it wasn't champagne. So they started doing that, and the demand has just been crazy. So I'm not going to bore you with too much science. We'll just taste some wines, but I wanted to share with you a couple of things, particularly about the proseccos which we're offering to Opimian and what makes them different. So, prosecco, I guess, comes in four different sizes, if you like. So that's the first thing to say. So, basic prosecco, prosecco DOC, comes from an area which is almost all of the Veneto, not quite, not Verona province, but otherwise all of the Veneto, and all of Friuli. So this is one of the, along with Della Venezia, one of the largest DOCs in all of Italy. And then, so that's Prosecco DOC. And then the next step up from that is Prosecco DOC, but there's two provinces which are allowed to put their name on as well. So one is Treviso and the other is Trieste. And then above that is Prosecco DOCG. And this is a tiny, 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 like 1% of the total production. And DOCG Prosecco comes from this little band of land. There's a really good map on the Prosecco. If you go to prosecco.wine, there's a really good map there that you can see. And it's a little band of kind of very steep limestone hills, sort of due north of Venice, not quite due north, north and a little bit to the west of Venice. And in that area, the river Piave sort of circles around, does this little horseshoe, and where it does this little horseshoe thing because it couldn't cut through the limestone rocks, and that's where the DOCG area is. And there's two towns in kind of at either end. One is Valdobbiadene, and the other is Conegliano, and they sort of bookend either side of this sort of best premium bit. So that's DOCG, and then right in the middle of but closer to Aldobbiadene, but in the middle of that strip is this best tiny, tiny little bit, which is called Cartizze. And Cartizze is the 100 hectare, 225 acre single vineyard, and that's really the top. So it's DOCG as well. So you've got DOC with one of these two towns, DOCG, and then DOCG Cartizze. For all of them, 85% of the wine must be made from a local grape variety called Glera, and the other 15% can be pretty much anything that they want. The other thing which you probably all know already is that uh, the method of production is not. I'm not going to go into all the production methods, but basically it isn't champagne method. Okay, so prosecco is made using the tank method, which is much cheaper, which is why the cost of prosecco is less than champagne. So, and the reason why they don't use the champagne method is because in the 19th century, the Italians, who were very creative, came up with this idea of how could we get the bubbles, but also the sugar. And this method was developed, and at the time, to have bubbles and sugar in the wine was unheard of and terribly fashionable. I'm sure you've all heard of Asti, and Prosecco kind of followed in the footsteps, although it's made in a slightly different way. So, like champagne, Prosecco comes in different sweetnesses. So there's Brut, extra dry, dry, and demi-sec, and they broadly follow the same levels of sugar which you've got in champagne. So in Italy, Prosecco is very much seen as an aperitivo. The tax regime is very different there, so sparkling wines aren't taxed any more than still wines. And you go into a bar and you'd have a glass of Prosecco and some nibbles. So the first one we're going to taste is this. Now this is a kind of real find for the Opimian Club this year. So this is just called 84, and this is Prosecco DOC, and it's from the Treviso subregion. So this is not just Prosecco DOC, this is one up. And this is a private label which we've developed because we can't tell you who the producer is. So, and the reason why is that they sell their wines for a lot more money, and we managed to do this bottling under a separate label, providing we didn't mention who the producer was. So this is a real find, a real secret, and it's great value for money. And if you're going to buy anything from the list, then this is for sure the best value for money wine there. So this is, I'll just hold up a copy of the offer. So this is 1882 is the number, and yeah, and it's, so what is it? It's, so this is I think this is the Ontario price, is $24. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but it's got a lovely fine mousse. This is a standard ISO tasting glass like everybody uses, and it's yeah, it's got a great mousse. And lovely nose, really pronounced. I know none of you have a bottle of this to try because it's the first year we've offered it, but I'm trying to imagine. And the nose on this prosecco is that classic kind of melon, pear, peach, nectarine. So in that kind of stone fruit. So it's not as citrusy as champagne, and it's not as tropical as a sort of New World Chardonnay. I can see there's some questions there, so I'll come back to those in a moment. So I love the nose on this, really fresh. This is great. This is absolutely what you want from Prosecco. None of the autolytic character from Champagne. Fresh as a daisy and just ready to go. I'm sorry about the spittoon, but I've got to drive after this to get back home. So this is, so technically Brut, so this is under 12 grams per liter residual sugar, technically, according to the law. And it tastes less than that. This tastes really beautifully dry. So I've got somebody joining from Victoria, BC. Okay, I need to know this. So we've got Victoria from Victoria. Hello, and what time is it there? I need to know. Gabriella, lots of questions. Okay, what's the difference between sparkling wine and prosecco? Well, sparkling wine would kind of be the umbrella, if you like, and then prosecco would fit under that as an example of the tank method. So if there's 4 ways of making wine sparkling, so the cheapest would be the injection method, what we call the bicycle pump method, where you're just pumping in carbon dioxide. And the next one up from that would be the tank method, and then the transfer method, which is where you ferment it in bottle and clean it up in tank. And then the most expensive at the top of the tree would be the champagne method. Um, good, good, good. Any other questions? What's the difference between sparkling wine and Prosecco? Where's the best Prosecco from? I think I answered that. So that's DOCG from Aldobbiadene, and we'll come on to that in a minute. Okay, so just to summarize, I think that is fabulous value for money. It's a label which you won't see anywhere else, and I can't tell you who the producer is, but it's great. It's really, really, really delicious. So the other thing, just before we come on to the Zuccheto, I think one of the things that's really important with Italian wines, and Prosecco's no different from all the other ones, is to make sure that you're really buying from a small producer. So Italian wine legislation is pretty complicated. There's loads of different grape varieties, and one of the things you have to remember is that the fashion last year was Gavi, and this year it's Prosecco, and next year it's going to be Pinot Grigio, and who knows what it's going to be after that. And if you think about what's happened, so just in the UK, we've gone from 0 to 200 million bottles. Think how many grapes you need to produce all that. And where did those grapes come from? And this is the thing that I keep trying to explain to people that, you know, in Italy, the law says that you have to have your grapes with a little grape passport that says that they're Prosecco. And every year, those producers can write to the government and say, I have got 3 acres of whatever. And they can change it every year. So if they think it's a year where they're going to sell Chardonnay, they'll write Chardonnay. And then they're going to say, okay, this year I think I'm going to sell Prosecco. And next year I'm going to sell Pinot Grigio. And they can change that every year. Because otherwise you couldn't flex the supply to meet this demand. Think about what's going on here. You've gone from nothing to 215 million bottles in a couple of years. And to start a vine growing and producing grapes would take 5 years. So how did they manage to do that? So for cheap Italian wines, it doesn't matter whether they're white or red, whatever. There's a great big tap in the south called Sicily, and that just produces whatever the country needs. So it's really important if you want to taste a genuine example of a wine from Italy that you absolutely go with a small producer. And the 2 words you need to know and look for on the label are azienda agricola, and that means agricultural estate. And then by law, they cannot buy anything in. So if you look at the Zuccheto, let's see if I can get this close enough. You can see Azienda Agricola, and that is kind of the proof that you're looking for. So this is vintage data. This is a 2019, that if you get this, you will, this is the vintage which you'll be buying. This is the extra dry, so there's a little bit more residual sugar than we saw on the previous wine. And this is 100% from, if you can see down here, Aldobbiadene. So Aldobbiadene is one of those 2 towns, Aldobbiadene and Conegliano. So this is DOCG, Azienda Agricola, and it's vintage dated 2019. And in the catalog, this is number 1883. 1883. So it's just, I folded over the corner, but it's this one here, and the Ontario price for that is $32. So I will get rid of that. Hi Charles, thanks for joining us from Toronto. Yes, that was a lovely lunch. It was on a Sunday, I think, if memory serves. Was it on Yonge Street or Avenue Road? I can't remember. Anyway, thank you for joining. Okay, so this is a Zuccheto 2019. One of the things with Carlos wine, so this is a very small estate, and it's a proper little estate, and he's right in the town, and his vineyards, he's got vineyards in Cartizze and all around Cartizze in the best bit. Family estate, him, his dad, and his mum, and that's that all they make is this rather wonderful Prosecco. They also do a really rare version called Col Fondo, which is a champagne method bottle fermented Prosecco. So nose on this, much more discreet, but much kind of classier. So this has got more pear, mint, sage, kind of a herbal note overlaying the fruit. Okay, so that is a better wine, money no object. But the 84 for the price is great. And the other thing about the Zuccheto is it's funny, but it needs a year in bottle. So if any of you bought some last year, this is when you should be drinking it, and it'll really have fattened out and taken on a bit more weight, and power, and perfume. So the 2019, this has just been bottled. Great vintage, 2019. Anything from 2019, you cannot go wrong. One of the things you'll be seeing coming out this year is 2016 Barolo, and next year 2016 Brunello. And 16s are great for reds. Reds really structured, built for the long haul. And 2019 as again a vintage as better maybe even than 2016. I think 2019 will be just a legendary vintage. So but this has got more acidity and that kind of freshness. And you know, the first wine we saw was more stone fruit, and then this has just shifted a little bit towards more cool climate citrus characteristics. And there we are. That's got great length, but it'll be better in. Yeah, I think it's going to need another little year. So, yes, last thing I want to talk to you about was so I've done a bit of research into sparkling wines in Canada. Here we go. Okay. Question. Canadian sparkling wines up 7% in the last 2 years. So sparkling wines are popular in Canada. Biggest selling category of sparkling wine in Canada is domestic sparkling wine with 54% of the market. And hot on its heels, Prosecco with 32% of the market. But here's a weird thing, okay? So when I was growing up and getting drunk in the back of my dad's car when I shouldn't have been, the thing that I was drinking was Baby Duck. And what is one of the biggest brands today in Canada? Baby Duck and Martini. I cannot believe it that 40 years later people are still drinking Baby Duck. So any Baby Duck drinkers out there, I have got to know. Don't be ashamed. Nobody's admitting to drinking Baby Duck. Anyway, I got the report from Wine Intelligence on sparkling wine in Canada, and there it was, Baby Duck after all those years. Good to know. Whoever makes Baby Duck is it's still going. Was that Andres or something? I can't remember. Those were days. Baby Duck and Crackling Rose. Yeah, Jordan Valley Crackling Rose. Bringing back the memories. Greg, help me out on this. Were you a Baby Duck man as well? Okay. If you do have any questions, um, yeah, I haven't had the Baby Duck for a while. My God. Good memories though. Good memories. Collingwood, Creemore. Love it. Anybody have any questions on that? I think I was supposed to do 20 minutes, so I'm kind of up to my 20 minutes now, and I don't want to overstay my welcome. But if anybody wants to ask anything about Prosecco, this is your time. Michael, hello, welcome. Ooh, Greg, dangerous, mate, dangerous. Yes, Kim, a sensible question. Should we get the 19? Should we get the 84 per second to drink upon reception and get the Zuccheto for next year? Yes, indeed. Perfect spelling, and yes, you should. Baby Duck Blind got good. No way, not for me, mate. Magnums of Baby Duck for 12 bucks 60. You know how to have a good time, girl. Magnums of Baby Duck. Now we're talking. Twice as nice. Cool. Okay, guys. Well, I'm quite happy to hang around. If anybody else has got any serious or less serious comments on Prosecco. Okay. Kim, Michael, is there anything else you want me to cover off? Thanks, Charles. All right, guys, I will love you and leave you. Thanks for joining. Hope you're enjoying the offering I've just seen come out. And hope to see you next time I'm in Canada and doing another round of tastings and so on for the Opimian Society. And it's particularly if you've taken the time off work to come and join this. If you're living to the west of Toronto or Montreal, then thanks very much. And see you next time. Cheerio.